Hey guys, Justin here. I wanted to take a quick second and let you know about Growth Now Movement Live, coming to Reading, Pennsylvania, May 30th to June 1st. This event is going to feature some of my top guests like Fabio Viviani from America's Top Chef, best-selling author and future board expert Sarah Centrella, Albie Manzo from Real Housewives of New Jersey, and many, many more. This is going to be a game-changing event. It is truly going to be a day-long rock concert for entrepreneurs, forward thinkers, and people who are ready to take their life to the next level. So if that's you, head over to gnmlive.com and grab your tickets today because prices are going up soon. Again, go to gnmlive.com now to level up your life and truly create the life of your dreams. Can't wait to see you there. What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now Movement. This week, I sit down with Aaron Singerman. Aaron is currently the CEO of Redcon1, a military-themed brand that so many can relate to. The business kicked off in September 2016 selling only apparel. It featured the late Dallas McCarver as the featured athlete, and by December of that same year, Redcon1 had begun selling a unique variety of nutritional supplements. Products named Breach, Double Tap, Total War, and Mental Trigger highlighted an impressive lineup, and it didn't stop there. By 2017, Redcon1 was a complete brand that included every major category of supplements. But that's not the most interesting thing about Aaron. Aaron, as you'll hear in this episode, has been through the trenches, trying steroids at the first time at 17, which then led to a heroin addiction, living with his drug dealer girlfriend, watching people get stabbed and killed. The journey that Aaron has been on is crazy. Like, you guys are going to hear this episode and with your jaws on the floor, just some of the stuff that he's experienced and witnessed. But that is what gave him the strength to build this massive company today and makes him a true leader. I think you guys are going to absolutely love this interview, and there's going to be a ton of nuggets that you can take and implement into your life to truly begin to grow. But before we get there, I just wanted to give you a quick update on Growth Now Movement Live. Tickets are flying out the door, guys. There's currently less than 30 VIP tickets left. So if you want to come and learn from people like Fabio Viviani, Sarah Centrella, Albie Manzo, and so many more, go to gnmlive.com today and get your tickets because, like I said, there's less than 30 VIP tickets left, and I want to see you there. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode with Aaron Singerman. Aaron, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, PJ had said, hey, I need you to interview one of my friends. And I was like, sure. I said yes before I even knew who you were, because PJ is one of those guys that if he says interview this person, it's usually a home run. And so I did my research and I was like, holy crap, this is going to be a great conversation. Not to put the pressure on you, but it's going to be a great conversation. I think your story is amazing. And, people may know you in the bodybuilding space and the supplement space, but we don't begin in our wins, right? So we don't begin, at the top of the podium. We don't begin with a gigantic company called Redcon1. So how did everything start for you? How did you even get into bodybuilding?
Well, I got into fitness when I was just a kid. I try to think back into what got me into it. I mean, I watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies with my dad. We watched Predator, and there's a part in Predator where he puts up his arm to tell everybody to stop. And I was like, damn, look at this guy, that was all. I just thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of my first memories. And I don't know if that really propelled me into it or what, but when I was 13 years old, instead of coming home on the bus would drop me off at a place called French Riviera Health Spa in Metairie, Louisiana. I'm from New Orleans, and that's a suburb of New Orleans. So everybody else would get dropped off at their house, and I had the school bus drop me off at the gym. And so every day I would go and try to figure out what to do with these weights for an hour or two, and then I would walk about a mile home. And so I did that every single day, and I just fell in love with it, man. I just fell in love with bodybuilding and fitness, the ability to change your body and to kind of sculpt whatever you envision. And I'm by nature, and this is something that followed me throughout life and has caused a lot of problems for me, but also now caused a lot of successes. I'm a very obsessive person. Mm-hmm. So I have it's part of like I said, it's like a character defect, but it's also one of the biggest successes. So for me, I got very, very obsessed with bodybuilding, with fitness in general. And I really thought about it all the time. Probably, it certainly hurt my schooling, because I focused a lot. I'd be thinking about what workout I was going to do later. And, a lot of people work out in high school for football, and I played football, but I was terrible. I was never good at any of the sports, but I was pretty damn good at weightlifting. And by the time I was graduating high school, I was 205 pounds, wow, which is pretty big for a high schooler.
Super big. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just really into it. And that kind of, unfortunately, that part of being so interested in bodybuilding also leads you, whether it's, on accident or on purpose, into steroids, because anabolic steroids is a part of bodybuilding, professional bodybuilding for sure. And it is just part of wanting to change your physique and being willing to do anything. People as a teenager, you don't think of the risks. And so I started taking steroids at a very young age, at 17. Wow. And an effort
so
to
young.
Very, very young. It was, it's for kids out there who ask me about steroids. I'm like, dude, do not do that. Do not do that. Because what it did for me, one of the really bad things, it's much worse than any kind of health effects or anything like that, because I didn't really experience a lot of negative health effects. And I still haven't. I've been very fortunate with what I did then. But what it did do is it gave me the ability or the willingness to take a needle and stick it into my body. Mm-hmm. And I think that when people talk about a gateway drug, steroids don't lead somebody to do other drugs necessarily, but it does. If you're able to take a needle at 17 years old, fill it with some substance, and then stick it in your body and inject it, that you've just penetrated not just your body, but some kind of mental barrier where you're like, okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, like I'm all in on whatever. Yeah.
If you're willing to do that to change your body, maybe you're willing to do that to change your mood, Mm. And I know for me personally that I certainly can look back to that time where I was willing to do that. And then I did do that. And I think that led me to a lot of problems in my future. And so right after that, I didn't graduate from high school. I wasn't a good student. I got a GED, and I did that just to appease my parents.
Sure.
And I went to Baton Rouge to go to LSU, but never went to LSU. I just went and hung around. I was a trainer over there, but I also discovered Oxycontin at the time. And obviously everybody knows about Oxycontin now. At the time, it was a really big deal. It was like a scourge. Everybody was in Baton Rouge, in that area. It was very prevalent, easy to get. And people would crush them up and snort them. So it didn't take me very long to start crushing them up and injecting them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, it was a thing.
Wow.
It was a very bad thing. And I did that for years, and I was physically addicted to it. And eventually, after everybody finished with college, I moved back to New Orleans, Louisiana. And when I was there for a short period of time back in New Orleans till Hurricane Katrina came in 2005. And I moved. I lost my apartment, whatever little possessions I had at the time, and I moved to Houston, Texas. Addicted to Oxycontin, but with no Oxycontin supply.
Yeah.
So when I got there, being very, very physically addicted, you have to figure something out. And what I did was I basically went on the street and found heroin, and switched my Oxycontin addiction for a heroin addiction. And, it's literally one bad thing to another. And, I talk a lot to people about, the visualization and positive thinking and all this stuff. And I was putting out so many negative vibes, just bad stuff continuously was happening to me, and life didn't look too good. So when I was in Houston, I was addicted to heroin. I was living in a FEMA apartment that the government was paying for. I wasn't paying for my electricity. So I was living in darkness. And literally, because all the money that I had would have to go to get heroin.
Yeah.
I had unreliable transportation most of the time, and then some of the time no transportation, and I was basically living on the protein and peanut butter that my parents provided me, so that I would be able to have money to buy heroin. Yeah. And it was a very, very desperate situation.
So how old were you at this point?
26 at the time when I was in Houston after 2005.
That's great. So within 9 years, you went from, okay, I'll try steroids to I'll inject anything in my body. And here you are, heroin, couldn't pay the electricity bill because everything was going towards drugs. Did your family know this was going on, or were you hiding it well?
No, they knew that I was doing drugs, and I'm very fortunate. My dad has since passed away, but my mom and dad were they did it perfectly. So they didn't cut me off completely, which would have been a disaster for me. And I know there's a lot of parents out there that when they're in a situation with their kids, you hear a lot about tough love.
Yeah, you're taught to cut them off.
Yeah, you don't enable them, right? Mm-hmm. And so my parents did a really good job of not enabling me. They never gave me any money, right? But they also didn't let me live on the street, and they didn't let me not have food. Now, they didn't get me filet mignon and lobster, but they got me peanut butter, bread, and protein powder.
Yeah.
So I never was hungry. I always had a roof over my head, and it wasn't ever as desperate as it certainly could have been. But they knew, but they didn't know what they could do to help me. And the truth of the matter is there really wasn't anything that they could have done to help me. There was no rehab that was going to fix me, and no therapy or something like that. I needed to figure it out on my own.
Yeah. And so, but now here you are running this massive organization in the supplement field. I imagine clean. I imagine, all these things.
If I was on heroin, let me tell you, this conversation wouldn't be going good.
If you're on heroin running this company, we've been told a lie about heroin this whole time.
Heroin's awesome.
Yeah, that's just crazy. But when did that shift happen? What was it like, okay, this needs to stop? And when did you start to pick things up?
So I had this really crystallizing event. So, people talk about hitting bottom, and to be honest, I don't know if this was hitting bottom for me. But it was a really pivotal event in my life. And it was when I made a real decision. And so I think that the problem with people in general is that truly people don't make an actual decision, 100% decision commitment to do almost anything, whether that's to be on a diet or to live healthier or to do whatever. They usually waffle kind of on the edge of making a decision to stop or go, or maybe later, like with drugs. A lot of people say, I'm never going to drink alcohol again. But, under the right circumstances, 10 years from now, if it's my brother's wedding, I could have one, right? So in their mind, they always have this potential, something could happen that maybe I could do it once. And that's really the issue. So for me, this one event crystallized that decision. And basically what happened was that I was living with a girl. It's interesting. She was actually a drug dealer. She is a tiny little girl that very unintimidating. Her ex-boyfriend died, was killed selling drugs. And when he passed away, she decided to continue his relationships with these larger drug dealers because she had no means to make money. So this literally the people that he had connected her with, just in her being his girlfriend over the years, continued to sell the drugs to her. And it was cocaine, and it was in huge quantities, in kilos.
Yeah.
And so the crazy thing was, the really nuts thing was that a lot of these street dealers who were very dangerous people loved to buy the drugs from her because she had competitive prices. But more than that, she was unintimidating. So when these guys would spend $50,000, $100,000, they were usually scared for their life, just like they were probably scaring other people for their life, because they're like, oh, if something goes wrong, I'll just kill you and take your drugs.
Yeah.
Or they maybe get killed and take their money. So to deal with this little girl, a lot of these kind of bad guys seemed to feel very confident in dealing with her. But whenever they would come, I would have to leave because they wouldn't want to see me. They just want to deal with her. A lot of people were in and out of her place, but people would come by a lot to hang out and do drugs, basically. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was injecting cocaine too all the time, like 50, 100 times a day. Yeah, it was crazy. It's crazy because it was all for free. Yeah, I know. It was all for free. So this guy came over who I was really close with. Me and her were friends with, really more me than her. And me and her went to her bedroom. When we came back, the guy was dead. And he had died of a drug overdose. And basically he was laying there on the couch. And now I had been around death before. I'd seen some crazy shit. But I had never had a person that I was close to die like that. And for the fact that he was there literally one moment. And when we walked back, literally it was like a flash, and now the guy's dead, and he's all the way dead. So, he had defecated his pants. He was starting to stiffen up and everything. And you could tell right away when I walked in, something was wrong. Yeah. And it smelled. And I looked at him, and honestly, I couldn't believe that I was standing there. And so she began to yell at me to move his body, to put him back in the truck and drive him away, put him in his truck and drive him down the road or into another parking lot. And I'm like, no way. First off, my friend's here dead in front of me. But then she's screaming to move his body. And I know enough. I've read enough books to know you don't move a body. He died accidentally. I'm not picking him up and moving him, let alone the fact that it's my friend. And so she began hitting me and screaming, where she's like, literally, this is all happening all in a moment where here's my friend. He's dead. It's terrible. She's hitting me, screaming, move the body. And for whatever reason, I don't know why that made such an impression on me at that very moment, but I literally didn't even say anything to her. I ran out of her place, got in my car, drove to my apartment, locked the door, and said, this is not my life. I need to change, because obviously I couldn't even imagine a situation like that. And here I was in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And so I locked the door, and I literally at that very moment said, I'm either going to die, or I'm going to change my life. And that was the beginning of it. Like from that moment forward, my whole life changed, and it has been literally, now there's been ups and downs in everybody's life, but my trajectory of my whole life skyrocketed from that very moment.
Yeah. So there you were, and you made this hard decision, and you go, I need to change everything about what I'm doing. Now, at this time, were you still bodybuilding?
No, so one thing that has stayed consistent is I tried to go to the gym, but when you're on heroin, and certainly when you're injecting cocaine 100 times a day, you're not really making it to the gym. It's pretty low on the priority list. Believe it or not, when I was doing just heroin, I was still able to go to the gym relatively regularly, a few times a week. But when you start doing cocaine, the only thing you want is to do more cocaine. And the only reason I was even doing heroin then was so that I wouldn't be sick, so that I could do more cocaine, basically. It was insanity. It was insanity.
Yeah. It's so crazy, because it's a world that I have a hard time wrapping my head around, and it's great to see you be able to kind of make your way out of it and kind of build what you've built. And so how long have you then kind of did you get back into bodybuilding and the competitions, and then that's what led to the supplement company, or how did we get here?
Sort of. So basically, when I got myself clean, it wasn't an instant process. I made the decision not to do the drugs anymore, but I was sick. So I ended up going to the methadone clinic, which was a disaster. So it took me, because methadone is terrible for you and it takes forever to get off of it. So it took me months and months to get off the methadone, even though I was, effectively sober compared to injecting myself.
Sure.
I was still dependent on medicine. But at that time, I decided, I need to have a job. I need to be able to support myself. What can I do? And I fell back on personal training, deciding to train people. And I worked at a wellness clinic there in Houston, Texas. And during that period of time, I determined through a series of events, to follow my passion, to figure out what the passion was. And the only passion I could think of was bodybuilding and fitness. So I don't, in my whole life, if I think back to everything that I've been really passionate about, the only thing I could put in my mind that could potentially be something was bodybuilding, and basically I had to be honest with myself and say, I am, a tall, skinny Jewish guy by nature. That's who I am. So I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia. I'm not going to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just not genetically possible. Plus, I already knew the route of what needs to be done to get to that level in bodybuilding. So I thought, well, what else can I do? I'm a pretty decent writer. People always said I have a good voice. Maybe I could do some talking. I could, be a commentator of sorts. I didn't know. Yeah. So I spent every waking moment from that point forward, essentially, other than the time that I was working to make money to pay the bills, to figure out what I could do in the bodybuilding and fitness industry to make money to support myself.
Sure.
So I wrote articles and sent them for free to all the magazines. I would just write them. Nobody would ask me to. I just write them and send them out. I listened to every single podcast. And after every podcast, I would write the podcasters and tell them what I thought of their show in hopes of them hitting me back and being like, hey, who are you or whatever. Then I went on all the bodybuilding forums, and I at the time, now that we have Facebook and Instagram, this doesn't sound so unusual, but back then I was the only person using my actual name. So everybody else was Swole Gun 69 or whatever. I was the only one that was Aaron Singerman, right?
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to be famous or anything, just because I wanted somebody to notice me and be like, this guy has good shit to say. Maybe I can work with him in some way or another.
Sure.
And that doing that actually led to an opportunity to interview a podcaster. It's funny. I wrote all these emails to these podcasters complimenting them and being like, hey man, that was a great podcast. I love the guest, blah, blah, blah. Nobody gave a shit. But the one time I wrote a critical email to my now longtime buddy, Carl Lenore, I emailed him and said, hey man, this advertiser you have, Can't See Eye Drops, is bullshit. It's like, no eye drops are going to make you not be able to see. I have too much respect for you to be doing these commercials for this. And he wrote back, I'm really sorry to hear you. Let me, what's your number? I want to call you and explain it to you. Because I hurt his feelings.
Yeah, of course.
And so he called me and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe this guy's calling me. And when he called me, we talked for a little while and he explained Can't See Eye Drops. And at the end of the call, he goes, hey, you have a really good voice. You'd be good on the radio. Have you ever anybody told you that? And I said, not really. I mean, I always thought maybe I'd be able to do something like that. And he's like, well, I've never been interviewed on my own show. Would you want to interview me? And I said, okay, I'll be glad to. And that week I spent literally probably 100 hours preparing for this hour interview of this guy on his show that at the time practically nobody knew. It's not like this was like interviewing Joe Rogan or something. This was just like, for me, this was my big opportunity.
Yeah. And
so I practiced and practiced. I said the questions to the mirror. And then when we did it after the show was over, he goes, man, you were really good. So you were really good. And he was like, have you done a lot of interviews before? And I said, no, it was my first one. And he goes, well, look, if there's any interest in you doing a different podcast, you think we could get some advertisers in bodybuilding? I mean, I will do it with you. And I said, all right. And I thought about it and I ended up proposing an idea to him. And we did a show called Off Topic Radio. We did 300 hours of podcasting together. And that opportunity got the attention of another guy named Dave Palumbo, who owned a website called RX Muscle, who eventually hired me when that show ended. And I went through the ranks with him, traveled the world, everywhere from India, Europe, everywhere, covering the sport of bodybuilding and fitness. And I eventually became the editor-in-chief of that website, which at the time was a big deal. It was the #1 bodybuilding and fitness multimedia website.
Yeah.
And so that is just, it's an interesting story for me because one opportunity has always led to something else, and that has led to something else. And so what I've been good at, I think, is seeing opportunities, not doubting myself or my abilities, and just pulling the trigger and doing it. And so that led to being the marketing director of a supplement company, which eventually led to that gentleman not wanting to not sell a product, saying that he was going to dispose of it. He gave it to me. I was able to sell it all and pay him back for the product and make $75,000 cash by selling it, profit. We ended up, me and my business partner at the time, ended up starting a whole new supplement company called Blackstone Labs with that money. So instead of taking the money and buying a car or spending it on something fancy, I reinvested it, and so did my business partner, into creating this new company. And we continued making products. And honestly, it's been like literally it's one thing after another that led me to here to Redcon1, which is my new baby and far, far bigger business than any of the other ones that I've owned.
Yeah, you do a little bit more than $75,000.
Oh yeah, do a little more than $75,000.
Yeah, so how much did you guys do in business in 2018? Just to give perspective.
To give you an idea, we did when Blackstone Labs won we were 27th fastest growing company in the Inc. 500. We did $10 million. And that was the fourth year at Blackstone Labs. We did many times more at Redcon1 in our second year, many multiples more than we did at Blackstone in our best year, which was 20 million. Wow, that's amazing. So it was it's been a wild ride and a journey, and I learned a lot of lessons along the way. I've owned half a dozen, 7 or 8 figure successful companies now, and I still own several of them. And each one of them has gotten, I've been able to remove a lot of the failures because that's just how it goes in life. You're going to make mistakes. And then I've been able to take the successes and really scale them with Redcon1. And along the way, I've become not just an expert on supplements, but an expert on digital marketing and marketing in general. And that's really, honestly, my passion is really transferred from bodybuilding to marketing.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. I mean, obviously, you could probably still be a bodybuilder. You're not a small dude. People aren't seeing you right now, but they'll see your photo on my social media when this episode comes out. Go look at it. He's not a small dude.
I could be a terrible bodybuilder, guys.
much better bodybuilder than me. Let's just put it out there. But here's the thing. Like, the one thing that I've noticed about what you've done is that you saw an opportunity and you said yes. And then as that grew, another opportunity came and you said yes. And so often people are afraid because, oh, that might fail or that might not work out. But I love the fact that, like, yes, you had the big picture, but you understood that it was one step at a time to get there. Now, as you were doing that, were you aware of the big picture, or was it like, no, this seems like a cool opportunity, I'll try it?
So basically, each step of the way, I've been really fortunate because I've been able to do something fun. So even with Off Topic Radio, I was making $3,000 a month doing something fun. Like, I was able to pay my bills and survive doing something fun. And as I've grown, I've been very fortunate to continuing doing stuff that I think is fun along the way, having a good time, and then always making sure to try my very best. You never know who's watching. So, like, I always go 100% on anything, whether it's a podcast or trying to get advertisers for our podcast back then or whatever. I put as much effort as I possibly can to it and hope that it leads to other stuff. And no, I mean, I would be lying to you if I told you that I envisioned when I was doing those podcasts or working for Dave Palumbo, sitting here I have 56 employees at this business at Redcon1, and we're the fastest growing sports supplement company in the history of the world. At least that's what everybody says. That's what I'm saying anyway.
Own it, man. You got to own it.
Yeah. So if that's the case, right? If I were to say back then, coming off of heroin, I had this grand vision of what it was going to be, I would be like the most arrogant guy ever, right? Yeah. Or some kind of evil genius. I could plan it all out like that. So no, I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know. I just kept going and keep setting new goals. And so every time we hit a goal here, we focus a lot on revenue dollars because it's like a scoreboard, right? Whenever I hit a goal, I'm excited, I'm happy, but I'm never satisfied. And then we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I love that. And that's how it should be. Like, I live in the motto of I'm always happy, but never satisfied.
Right.
And that's what keeps me hungry. But I better be damn sure that when I wake up every morning, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure tenfold for you, because I think that with addiction, and there's addiction in my family. My mom had a 20-year opioid addiction herself that ended up taking her life. But
sorry to hear that.
When you watch that, addiction's always a possibility again, right? To fall back into it, no matter how, what your wins are, no matter how successful what it seems like around you. So what keeps you humble enough to not fall back into that, to not think that, hey, I'm untouchable?
Sure. So I think there's a few things. Number one, look, I'm happily married. I have 3 little boys. I have a 6-year-old little boy, a 3-year-old little boy, and a 17-month-old little boy. So
wow, that's a lot, man.
It's a lot of little boys. So those things, my wife, my family truly keep me grounded and keep my life balanced. Like I told you, I'm an extremely obsessive person. And if I didn't have those things, the level of obsession here at work and in the office would be at an all-time high, because that's just how I am.
Yeah.
And I really am very focused on achieving. And so I'm very grateful to have the family, not just because I love them and, do everything for them, but also because it forces me to stay level, to stay, even keel, where I know what's important. And if I forget for a minute, my wife is sure to text me and say, "What are you doing? Why are you still at the office? Come home. Your kids want to see you." And I'm like, "Oh shit." Because that is more important than anything I'm doing at any one moment here. It's never like it can always wait for me to put the kids to bed, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then the other thing is, like, so people ask me because of the crazy addiction stuff that I have and all the history. They say, how do you reconcile that? It's almost like it's a different life. So we're talking about it now, and I told a story recently to some of the guys here that I'm close with at the office, Eduardo and Eric, and I was telling them a story about seeing my drug dealer, Red, and he got stabbed by his girlfriend and died. So she stabbed him from the back, and I was standing in front, and it came out of him, and I told him a story. And they're like, "How did you never tell us a story before?" And I was like, honestly, I haven't thought about it. Like, it's like it's almost like, I have some guys on my team here that are SEALs or Navy SEALs, combat veterans that have, accommodations and medals you wouldn't even believe, 13, 14, 15 tours of combat duty. And it's like, you talk to them about it, and it's almost like some of that doesn't even exist to them anymore. Like, it's another life. And so the best thing I could tell you is, for me, I never think like, hey, I would love to have some cocaine again, or like, boy, that heroin sounds good today. It doesn't even come into my mind. It's just not even a possibility. So that's the one thing that's a little weird, because people ask me that have addiction, like, about my stuff. And I hate to even say that, because I don't think that's a good message to convey, because that is not most people. Most people, like, I have a close buddy, Nick, who survived a lot of the addiction stuff with me, who was doing heroin with me. And he smoked crack. Thank God I never did that, because it made him super crazy. But he made it through all that. He's actually a success. He's the only guy that I know from that time that was my really bad time that is still alive even. Well, they're all dead, essentially. Everybody is dead, and dozens of them. But he not only survived, but has really thrived. And he can't have a drink. If he took a sip of alcohol, and he has before, thinking like maybe it'll be okay to have one beer, somehow he gets to smoking crack again. Literally, like within the period of hours or a day from having a glass of wine, he's smoking crack. And so obviously I could never tell him, hey man, like you're going to get past this, and one day because that's totally not him. So,
wow, man, that's just crazy. I mean, it's so hard I've had so many conversations with people who have addiction issues, because people reach out to me all the time because of this podcast. And even though I've never had an addiction issue, they reach out to me because of my story with my mom. Yeah. And, you see it all. Like, it definitely runs a gamut. For sure. And I've never heard a story like yours that was so deep into it. And now you're just like, yeah, it's like, I have no issues. Like, it's just crazy to think about, man. But, the cool part about this podcast is I get to have incredible conversations with successful people, however you want to define success. But my question for you is, what's your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success?
So success to me is, number one is the freedom to do what you want to do. So that's really what success means to me. I've been fortunate enough to get all the possessions that I dreamed to have when I was a kid. So I literally have checked every box. When I was a kid, I had a Lamborghini poster on the wall, and I had those things. I had everything that I thought I wanted, I have checked off, right? So having more collection of stuff doesn't really mean success to me like it did before. Now, when I think of success, it means the freedom to just be whoever you want to be, do what you want to do, and basically chase the things that mean something to you. So that's really what success means to me. If you have the ability to all day long do what you want to do, then you have freedom, and that's certainly success. So if I want to take my kids and my wife to the Bahamas tomorrow, I can do it. If I want to be here at work grinding it out and trying to hit the next goal, I can do that too. Now, I don't have the ultimate freedom that I would like to have, but that's what I'm chasing, that freedom.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are 3 things that I do every day? So I have a few things that I do every day that I think are kind of interesting. Number one, when every morning, so I do Facebook Live, Instagram Live every morning or almost every morning on the Redcon1 IG, so that I can answer questions about products, so I can be available to the customers. We only have like 100 people watch live, but they're watching the cardio with me, and they kind of keep me company and make my cardio go by faster. And at the same time, they're connecting with the CEO and the decision maker of the business. So people like it and I like it. And I tell people, it's something I do regardless of if I'm on there with them at the end or if I am by myself. I always remind myself in the mirror that today is going to be the best day ever. And I look at myself, I say that, and I internalize that. And that's one of the first things I do every day. And I think that visualization and materializing, manifesting whatever you want, the mind is incredibly powerful. And if you tell yourself you're going to have the best day ever, then that is an incredibly powerful way to start the day, in my opinion. And for me, that works good for me because I feel good I say it and I laugh or smile because it's kind of ridiculous. But I like that. And so I say that to people, and I say that on my own if I'm not. The other thing that I do twice a day is when I brush my teeth, I think about what I'm grateful for. So it gives me an opportunity because I don't really sit and meditate. I had this app that I was doing for a while, but so I don't have a lot of time. And when you have 3 kids in the morning, it's crazy. And then at night you're tired. So I don't really have time to sit down and stop the day and do like a meditation. But when I brush my teeth, I have a minute or two that I close my eyes and think about the things that I'm happy for in my life and I'm grateful for. And I think that's very important to my success. Now, a whole different direction with this thing. what we're talking about that I do is I don't procrastinate. I literally don't procrastinate. So I am a very lazy person by nature. It's just something I was born with. It's probably like a genetic thing, but I have totally beat that. So at some point in my life, during the time that I worked for Dave Palumbo at RX Muscle and I was traveling the world, I realized this about myself. He even told me, "Hey, you're lazy." He was a very, very hard worker. Very hard worker. He wasn't the smartest worker, but he was a hard worker. And I witnessed for the first time in my life somebody who was a very, very hard worker. Because my dad growing up was an awesome guy, but he was not a super hard worker. He did what he needed to do to make things work out, but he didn't push super hard. He came home early, he left late, he came home for lunch. I didn't see somebody like pushing super hard. So I got to see him and he told me I was lazy. And I said, you know what? I am lazy. I want to do the littlest possible thing to get by. I don't want to fail out. I don't want to, lose my job, but I don't really want to push super duper hard either. And so what I did was when I have that impulse to procrastinate, I immediately do the thing that I want to procrastinate. And I still have it, but it's so second nature that people in the office will tell you that I'm ridiculously like I'm too on top of stuff. I'm too on top of them to some degree. And that I am like incredibly driven to check off the box and move on to the next goal. And so I think that is one thing that I do all day long. I have my list, I check things off, and I don't ever procrastinate. If there's something I don't want to do, I literally stop what I'm doing and I do that thing right then.
No, dude, I love that because I'm a procrastinator at times. Like certain times where I'm like, okay, I just got to get it done because I don't want to deal with it later. But like, I'm definitely a procrastinator. So that's something I'm going to take and put into my repertoire of, look, if I don't want to do it, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. You have to make a conscious decision and be like, okay, I'm wanting to not do it. That means I have to do it.
Yeah. Because dude, like honestly, like the things I procrastinate don't even take that long. But in my head, you blow it up, it becomes this thing. I don't want to do it, like all that stuff. That's crazy. Yeah. That's so true.
And then if you don't do it, if you put it off to the thing, it ends up being like, for me anyway, it creates anxiety. Mm-hmm. So I've created this thing where now if there's something that I don't want to do, and I even put it off for a little bit, I start thinking about it. And this is also one of those things that's really great habit for success, but it also can drive people around you crazy. My wife will tell you she hates that I will stop everything to write back to an email or respond to a text message. And it's something, it's a double-edged sword. Like a lot of things are like that.
Yeah, of course. Like, but you pick your poison, right? Like you have to figure that stuff out for sure. So I wrap up all these episodes with 5 rapid fire questions. But before we get there, how do people get a hold of you? Is there anything else you want to add? Because this conversation has already been amazing.
Oh, thank you, man. You can follow me on Instagram. All my social media is the @ and then Aaron Singerman, just like my name, Aaron, and then Singerman. So I'm easy to find. I'm literally, I'm everywhere. So I'm everywhere. Awesome. You could talk to me every morning on my IG Live. So
there you go. Yeah. That's the Redcon1, right?
Yes. Redcon1 IG Live. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very, very cool. So we'll go to the 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun, some are serious. I just ask you this. Answer within 1 word or at the most 1 sentence. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
First one is, what's your favorite smell?
Gasoline.
Really?
Yeah.
You're the second person who said that. I think that's such a bizarre thing.
I like it.
That's great. Yeah. What's one trait that's non-negotiable in any of your friends?
I want to say loyalty, but that doesn't usually always work out. So it's like, that's the trait that I would look for. So I'm going to say loyalty, although it's not always, perfect.
The loyalty with the asterisk mark next to it. Yeah, of course.
That's it.
If you could have dinner with one person, living or dead, who would it be?
Living or dead? One person. That's a tough one. I'm tempted to say Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I feel like that sounds kind of like vapid, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
There you go. That's a great answer. That guy's been through a lot, man.
He's a success story, that's for sure. Yeah,
that is for sure. So he started.
You ever heard his rules to life? You ever heard his speech on his rules to life?
No, I have to watch it though. Like
take a note. It's great. Yeah, he's that on YouTube. His rules to life are awesome.
That's awesome. I'll check it out for sure. At the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for 1 sentence, what would that be?
These are deep questions. Tempted to. I guess I would say that he loved his family, that he did anything for people that he cared about.
Awesome. Obviously, this podcast is called the Growth Now Movement, so I wrap up every single episode with this one question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
My biggest moment of growth. Having my first child, Asher, when my first child was born, that was hugely important to make me get off my ass and create the success that I've created.
That's awesome. Aaron, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, your incredible story with my audience. Hopefully, a couple of years from now, we can have this chat again, and we're talking about you actually being the biggest supplement company in the world.
Hell yeah. That'll be great. I would love that, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.